So it's about time for me to probably do one of these as we're nearing closer to Worlds, and I kind of want to suggest a Forbidden Limited list, even though our previous one was in June. And it could either be in August, September, or October, but I'm leaning heavily to the end of September into early October. Now, I usually have 3 stipulations per ban list, and this time I have 3 actual stipulations to go along with it. As any set from June 5th and before, they are all free to get hit. So anything from Wild Survivors and before can get hit. The only rarity I will exclude from the Forbidden Limited list would be Ultimate Rares from OTS Pack 2022, being Triple Tactic Thrust, Pure Lily, and Branded Fusion, but I could also consider things from future product like Rarity Collection, with everything getting a massive reprint. And third, I don't want to hurt the sales of Konami for what they want, but I'm going to try and hit things that aren't relatively in the newer products like Megatins or even the Rarity Collection, and help boost sales of that set with a few cards coming off. So let's get into this whole entire part of where to put everything. Now, first up, I want to look at the cards that I would like to see forbidden. And those are going to be interesting because some of them are still pretty new, while others are pretty old. First up on the list, I want to take a look at Albion the Sanctifier Dragon. Now, this is Branded Expulsion Plus, as it almost does the exact same thing as Branded Expulsion. Cannot be targeted, and it cannot be used as a fusion material, so there's that downside to your opponent. But also, being able to summon out one monster from your opponent's graveyard, or 2 cards from the graveyard, 1 to your opponent's field, 1 to your field, and being able to just Gimmick Puppet lock, again, in a different form, is kind of very crucial for how Branded plays right now. And I kind of want to push away from that type of Branded, where Gimmick Puppet Nightmare doesn't get hit, while things like Branded Expulsion and Albion can be on the ban list. Now, this also creates a diversity of, hey, these 2 cards, or this card, will cause problems if you ban Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, as they'll just go to the next one, and then the next one, and keep going until they have no more targets to summon, or you could just flat out ban Albion the Sanctifier Dragon. After that is one of my wildcard choices being Aromaseraphy Jasmine, a card from Dual Overlord, or Overload, along with Christian, Halka, Fibrex, Verte, Anaconda, Auroradon, and all of those Link monsters that have already been banned. This card alone is a Lone Fire Blossom, attributing any monster points to summon out another monster from your deck, and also if you gain life points, you get to draw 1. But that effect right there isn't hard once per turn, so if you most times you're summoning 2, so you can draw 2, and get more resources so you can keep going. Honestly, this is one of the cards that I thought either could go to 0 or to 1, but with recent events, I definitely think it might be getting limited since it's such a powerful Link monster, and putting it to 1 could curve a little of the combo that Sun Avalon Rika has for what it is. Next up, we have Eradicator Epidemic Virus. This card has been hand looping for 4, for 5, even for 6 in a lot of matchups, and honestly, this card definitely needs to go. Kind of like how Crush Card was back in 2004, 2003, being such a big blowout card, and even further, just being a big blowout card by attributing a monster with 1500 attack, looking at all your opponent's stuff and nuking what your opponent had, that can just be devastating. This card nuking spell cards, as most decks are reliant on monsters and spells, you're getting rid of 1/3 of the whole entire card type. It's kind of like how Imperial Order was negating all spells. Now we have to deal with Eradicator. You can even put Full Force Virus here as well, because it's kind of another issue, but that more engages towards low defense decks, so there's a few options there, like Branded, it goes against. After that, I kind of want to have, if I can find it on this list, Gigantic Sprite being part and going down to 0, because this card is allowing A lot of decks get access to a rank 2 engine just so you can end on a Sprite Care or a Sprite Red, depending on what it is. It actually hurts a lot of strategies when you look at it. It hurts Sprite in general because it gets rid of another tutor from their deck. It's a pseudo emergency teleport that locks both players out of things like Bestials and even using Nibiru. But also it does have a few hard counters to it, like Imperm, Effect Veiler, even Ghost Ogre. So there's many things that you can use against it to stop it from summoning something from deck. But honestly, with this card roaming around, being able to pump itself up to 3,200 if you have a Link as a material, it could be very scary. And then if you negated the effect, you can just slap a Zeus on top of it. Maybe. Because the effect got negated, but honestly, with Gigantic Sprite, I could see it more becoming an issue further down the line, like how Sprite Elf became as time went on. And then next up, I want to see something like Kashira or Riseheart get forbidden, because it is a walking Macrocosmos Floodgate type card, and honestly with this card, it is a very beefy powerhouse. 3k attack, being able to detach 3 materials, target a card on the field, banish it face down, and anytime something is banished, you get to attach any card that's face down to it. So you can pair it with things like Pot of Prosperity by banishing a Infinite Track Goliath, like I have mentioned in a video that I also have coming out, that you could just get Infinite Goliath, Garura, Intis, just a lot of things loaded onto it. So if your opponent decides to Super Poly it or Kaiju it away, you kind of get so much advantage off of it. Also, it's just advantage in general because it banishes all your opponent's things, and it can banish stuff from them face down. Now, one of the honorable mentions I do want to make is Hot Red Dragon King Calamity. This card is going to be, or it can be, current problem with the new Crimson Dragon, and Crimson Dragon is a very powerful card, but can only be used in synchro strategies or decks that can make multiple level 12 synchros. Now this, you could summon out with Crimson Dragon by targeting the new level 12 super heavy samurai synchro monster, and just being able to put the Crimson Dragon back to summon this out and make it where your opponent cannot activate effects for the rest of the turn. So it's kind of like how Azathoth was, Shockmaster, and many other cards like Utopic Zexal. So it's another one of those cards that could be classed as forbidden, but I kind of want to keep it on off the list and legal because the new Jack Atlas structure deck that's going to be coming out with this card possibly in it. So there's that. Now we're going to be looking at the limited section, and we're going to be looking at a few cards here. Things like Aluber the Jester Despia and its good pal, Branded Opening. So these two go hand in hand. After the past couple years of these cards being legal, I think it's finally time to start hitting things like Branded. This is why I don't have Branded Fusion on here, because it's getting an ultimate rare. Aluber and Opening allow you to run a small little fusion engine just because it's actually very tight and compact. Being able to have 6 copies of Aluber, or a total of 9 copies of Branded Fusion, can be very powerful, and hitting these two down to 1 could definitely help make it where Branded can't really recover even after a Albion ban. But also, I definitely see it as, hey, we need to start pushing new products, so these two will definitely be going to 1, in my opinion, as they should have, like, back a few formats ago, as Konami really needs to start hitting the current stuff to start selling new products, like the new Horus archetype from Angel of Overlord, and even the new Dibelsar Sekai archetype. So that's one thing to definitely look forward to in the future. After that, we have the drastic duo, Bestial Magnamut and Bestial Saronir. Now, the reason why I'm hitting both of these, Bestial Magnamut is one of the best Bestials in the game because it replaces itself. And with Bestial Saronir, it sort of does the exact same thing, but Foolish is a branded spell or trap card from your deck to the grave, or a Bestial monster like a Bestial Lubellion. Now, I won't be touching Bestial Lubellion because it really hasn't had an official reprint yet. Well, these 3 cards haven't had an official reprint yet, but Lubellion is more of a top selling point because it could search out things like Magnuma and Saronir, Druzorm and Baldrake. But with these cards being reprinted in the Megatins, you can definitely hit Magnuma, but you can also leave Saronir at 3 along with Lubellion, or you could hit 2 of the 4 main banish Bitsteals and keep 3 of them at 3 and 2 of them at 1. So that's kind of my thought process on it, where it also not only slightly hits branded, but even then they run 1 Lubellion, 1 Saronir. It also hits Dragon Link in some form. Because I originally had Striker Dragon going to 0, but I thought, let's just hit the Bitsteals to see where that see where that goes. Still give them a little power, but they have to run other Bitsteals that don't really replace themselves in the long run, outside of a Lubellion being able to search out any of your Bitsteals. After that, we're going to be talking about a floodgate that we really don't like, being Dimension Shifter. This card curves the game super fast and it makes it unfun for a lot of players, and we could see this happening on live streams a lot, where people drop this and it can immediately end the game depending on what deck you're going against. Sometimes they have to wait out, other times they can't, but also we see this in a lot of main decks right now, being stuff like Kashtira, Flundries, and even other decks that could utilize it super well. And personally, this card could either go to Limited or to Forbidden, and it wouldn't really make a difference for me. Sure, you would see it less if it goes to 1, but banning it also makes it where you can't play it at all. Which, honestly, I definitely think it's going to be in more of that boat, but I'm going to put it to 1 just to have it at 1. After that, we have Glowbulb. With the release of Duelist Nexus, we have Revolution Synchron, a somewhat little better Glowbulb, but especially in the TCG, it's only a little better because we don't have Chaos Ruler. These two cards are kind of the similar, but Revolution Synchron can make it itself a level 7 Synchro into something like an Ancient Fairy Dragon, but Glowbulb is there as if you're running Tearlament, you can run both of them, and they can actually synergize quite well in synchro strategies. But most of the time, Glowbulb, being a once per duel summon from graveyard and mill the top card, wouldn't really do much nowadays. Sure, you can make something like an Interior Beast, but honestly, at the end of the day, you could do the same thing with Revolution Synchron, but you can also get a level 8 Crystal Wing or a Clear Wing on the board, so you can get one of those two out, or even both. Next up, we're going to be talking about the Kashtira twins, being Kashtira Fenrir and Kashtira Unicorn. These two go hand in hand as they're kind of a dual-plated card where one searches out a spell and one searches the other, or itself. Now, these two being able to search very powerful cards is slightly an issue, and they're two of the best cards in the free special summon pools, or as Konami would say, built-in summon, but they also can banish stuff face down, Fenrir from the field, and Unicorn from the extra deck, so it kind of hinders your opponent's materials and all of their type of utility. Unicorn being able to get free knowledge from the extra deck is very unfun, and honestly, Fenrir just banishing something that's face up, face down can be detrimental. And limiting these two cards with banning a Rise Heart could definitely hurt the deck enough where it can't really do much and has to go back to how it was with Darkwing Blast being Shingria of past. But also they could keep a Rise Heart at 1, so you have the 1/1/1 suite where you have to run it as a small engine in other decks. Now, the next card I've been asking for the past, I don't remember how long, but Orcust Harpur, I feel like this card definitely could come back. It's been 3 years, and honestly, with how this card has been, in my opinion, Orcust has only been seen as an engine so far, and honestly, it only pops up in a few lists here and there over the past 3 years, and I really hope that they finally get this card taken off the list, because we have Engage at 2, we get Mirage Stalio and Circle are at 3, and many other decks like Striker has so many other cards back. And Orcust is just there being frail, like the Cheem Dog, being like, give me my heart back. One card that I don't have on this whole entire image board is Magispector Unicorn Kieran. Now, for Magispector Kieran, everyone remembers this card, and they kind of fear it for some reason. But Magispector Unicorn, I feel like it's the next Pendulum monster that can come back. Let me pull it up real quick. As this card right here just states, during either player's turn, target one Pendulum monster in your monster zone and one monster your opponent controls, return them to the hand, and you can only use this effect once per turn. And this card cannot be targeted by your opponent's card effects. But Magispector Unicorn Current is definitely one of the cards that doesn't really do much nowadays. Even if people say, oh, don't judge a book by its cover. But Unicorn and Pendulums alone really haven't been doing anything. And I'm really hoping that Magispectors do get support in the near future, because it's been a few years since the Draco Slayer lore got support outside of the new Draco Slayers. After that, we're going to be going on to things like Runics. First up, we're going to be talking about Runic Fountain. I definitely think this card's going to get limited because of how much power it actually holds. Being able to get you a net draw of 6 cards during either player's turn, or 3 cards total during your opponent's turn, 6 cards during your turn. So you get to deep draw into your deck, and Konami really doesn't like cards that deep draw. Now, you can hit this card, but you can also hit things like Hugin, because this card searches out Runic Fountain and protects it. But honestly, I think that Runic Fountain is more of the hit because of what it could do. And I totally forgot a tier, which is sad of me. And this is going to be the unlimited tier. So I think Runic Fountain is going to be definitely going down to 1 because of how powerful it is of a card. And finally, for the limited section, we're going to be looking at Skill Drain. Now, everyone can say this card should never have come back to 3 because of how powerful it is. They should have tested it at 2, but they only put it 3 because the new Adventure engine that can utilize it, but many other decks can utilize it better, like Labyrinth and even Dark World. And Dark World has many shady things going on right now, using Eradicator, Full Force Virus, Skill Drain, and having the new Fusion Grapha and the new Dark Corridor. So that deck might be a very good contender if ever Droll Lockbird gets banned. But those are all limited cards that I have currently, and once we get through all of this, all of my things, I'm going to be adding what's on the bottom for last. Now, for cards going to 2, I definitely think Ancient Fairy Dragon and Denlong versus the Yingxing, they're going to be going back to 2 and then going to 3, because Denlong does cool things. Ancient Fairy Dragon, you only need 1. Denlong doing cool things is pretty good, but it honestly isn't doing enough. And Ancient Fairy Dragon, I'm still waiting to see people run Manadimian with this card in Revolution Synchron to justify the praise of Revolution Synchron, but honestly, Ancient Fairy Dragon isn't that good. The card, so funny thing is, every list I have a new card that I talk about and really want. The last time I had this was Symbol of Heritage, and it finally went to 3 not too long ago. This time it's going to be Divine Wind of the Mist Valley. If a wind monster you control is returned from the hand to the field, or from the field to the hand, you get to special summon a level 4 or lower wind monster from your deck, I believe. Now, this card was only hit because there was a Gen X Harpy Lady deck that was able to be played back in 2013. And honestly, with this card being on the Forbidden Limited list, it's not going to do much. The only thing that was being ran was that deck I just mentioned, and an Ancient Fairy Dragon FTK that no longer works because like 5 of their cards got eroded, and a few of their cards are at 1 or even banned. After that, we have Lunalite Tiger. This card got banned back in 2020, and then it came back to 1 in 2022. It has not seen a single thing of play, so I could definitely be safe to say this card can go back to 3. After that, we're going to be looking at Subzitoad. This card came back to 1 recently, and honestly, this card can go back to 3. All the cards that I'm putting to 2 can go back to 3, but let's just take it step by step. Finally, we have the Unlimits, and first off, we have Herald of the Orange Light. It was limited because of Ishizu's Cheerlement. Then a couple lists later, it came back to 2 as the cards were at 1. And I feel like this is just going to go back to 3 because it's not really that good anymore. Ishizu Tearlament is definitely a deck that I don't think is going to be seeing much of a power boost with this card going back to 3. And then next up we have Red Rose Dragon. On the notes I have is ¿por qué? And that's really it. But another thing I do have to say about Red Rose Dragon, ¿Dónde está? Why is it at 1 still, even though that we have things like Jet Synchron, Mecha Panda Beast, O-Lion, Destrudo, and a few other tuners that were hit because of Helka Vibrax, finally back at 3. And this is the only one that is just not at 3 anymore still. So there is that. Next up we have Salamangreat Gazelle. This card should have went to 2 last list because of the new Salamangreat support coming out in the Fire Duels pack. But I see it definitely going to 3 next list because Salamangreat is a good mid-range deck. It's not top tier. It's not low tier. It's at least rogue at best, even with the new support. But honestly, definitely put Gazelle to 3 to help those sales more. And then finally on my list I have is Spellbook of Judgment. This card is at 3 in Master Duel and over in the OCG, and hasn't seen play at all, but I definitely see this card coming back to 2 or 3 on the next list because they have like 1 top, and that's enough to justify this card can go back to 3. It's quite funny that this card got banned in 2013 of August 1st, and now it's back at 1 in 2023, and I'd love to see it go back to 3 in August of 2023 after 10 years. So there is that. Now let's talk about the last remaining cards here, and it looks like we have a total of 11 cards. So some people do say that some of these cards could definitely move up on the list, and let's do a speed round of this. Infernity Archfiend, it can go back to 3. Infirmities won't really do much. Big Welcome World Labyrinth, I definitely see this going down to 1 because it's one of the more powerful trap cards that they have, being able to special summon something from the deck, then bounce something back to the hand. You could summon out a Silver Castle, return it to the hand, then respecial it, or you could summon out a Lovely Lady to return an Ariane, and then next turn you can normal summon it to get another search. So honestly, this is one of the cards that I definitely see getting hit. Sprite Starter, I definitely see it not getting hit and just staying at 2, so it's going to be no change for me since I'm hitting Gigantic Sprite. Sky Striker, Mobilize, Engage, this card can go to 3. It went to 2, didn't really do much, can go to 3, it's probably not going to do much. They still have Hornet Drone at 1, and Sky Strikers really have been pushed out of the meta. Pot of Prosperity, I don't see this getting hit just yet because the new Rarity Collection. And Super Poly, I don't see it getting hit at all either. We have Title, the Dragon Ruler of Waterfalls. This card can definitely go back to 1, even Redux too. Then we have Runic Tip. I don't see this going anywhere. It could go down to 2, but I don't think it's going to get hit. Wind Up Carrier, Zen Mayday, Party Boat can go back to 1, and I don't think no one will flack an eye out wind-ups. We have some more Bird of Sovereignty. I would love to see this go back to 1 because of the new Horus deck. But also, it's going to be very cool to see this. Now let's see what people can do. And finally, we have Dimensional Barrier. I don't see the card getting hit at all, but that's my opinion for now. But anyways, I hope you guys did enjoy this prediction type video, and I want to know you guys' thoughts on it after we put everything onto it at the very end. But anyways, I have been Bolt Spider, and see you guys in the next video.